"You're not family when you always take and never earn," my uncle said, and the knives stopped singing. I was spooning gravy when he chose his moment, the steam gilding my glasses, the table crowded with casseroles and good china. Thanksgiving at my mother's bungalow carried a treaty of truce, unspoken but brittle. We honored it with cranberry sauce in silver bowls and polite stories worn thin. My uncle, Raymond, treated the holiday like a stage. He carved the turkey, he carved people too, smooth strokes, a smile that never reached his eyes. I am Sylvie Carrow, 33, a grant writer who measures life in quiet approvals, small shipments of hope. I was the kid who packed the folding chairs after reunions, the niece who shows up sober and stays to scrub the pans. I grew up under my mother's calendar of bills and shut-off notices, under a roof patched with tar and prayer. My uncle visited with laughter, and left with borrowed tools he never returned. The room tightened around his sentence. His wife hid her mouth behind a napkin. My younger cousins watched the show they knew by heart. My mother smoothed the tablecloth and said my name like a warning. "Sylvie." "It's fine," I said. The gravy ladle felt heavy, like a pendulum counting down. I set it down and lifted my water glass. "To family." "To family," my uncle echoed, satisfied. He liked the performance of virtue when the script had his lines. He had caved in his 40s and started a small contracting business, the kind that depended on handshakes and men who said yes to invoices. He looked at my cardigan, my sensible boots, my steady paycheck, and saw a woman who asked for little. People like him confuse modesty with permission. Dinner resumed, slow and creaking. The radiator hissed. Outside, the maple tree clattered its last leaves against the window. I chewed turkey that tasted like paper. I thought of the August he called me, voice rough, the job gone wrong, a supplier late, and could I float him something until Friday. He said Friday as if it were a fixed star. He had loved me once. At least, he loved the version of me that fit under his elbow in old photos, the one with a gap in her teeth who believed him when he promised to teach her how to fish. He forgot those promises like he forgot receipts. I remembered everything, because remembering was how we paid our way. "That cardigan suits you," he added, the kind jab men use to remind women they can be seen or ignored. "Practical." "Practical keeps the heat in," I said. My cousin Mason shifted. "Uncle Ray, lay off." "I'm teasing," he said, not a hint of apology. 2 years earlier, I had floated him more than something. I had drawn up a short agreement, because quiet women use paper when volume fails. He signed in my kitchen, his hand blotting the cheap pen. I filed the original and slept 8 hours for the first time that month. At the table, I felt the old ache rise, the one that says pick up your plate and leave, save yourself, let the truth shatter. I sat instead. I cut my sweet potatoes neatly and listened to the room, to the soft talk of cousins, to my mother clearing her throat for a different story. The only thing louder than my uncle's sentence was the small click inside me as something aligned. I did not fight him there. I would not become his echo, bright with anger, easy to dismiss. The first spark was simple and domestic. I would bring dessert. And I would bring something else, wrapped in a folder, thin as a second skin. Shame stains longer than wine on a tablecloth. It dries invisible, then shows up again under the right light. In the days after Thanksgiving, I washed serving platters and replayed his words. I scrubbed the roasting pan with steel wool. The house smelled like lemon soap. I could still taste the silence that followed his insult, like a draft under a door. My mother pretended not to notice. She fussed with rubber bands on the leftover containers, labeled things with dates. She was proud I was the one who stayed, the one who did not crash or burn. Pride can be a kind of hunger when it has nothing to feed on. I went back to my apartment, a second-floor walk-up with patient floors that understood the pace of a woman late from the bus. My work waited, and so did my plants. I watered the potholes, straightened the stack of proposals, and sat at the little desk where bills and dreams swapped seats. The folder was there, tucked in the bottom drawer, labeled in tidy letters, Raymond, loan, August 14th. I slid it out and laid it on the desk. The paper felt cool, indifferent. It did not remember his voice on the phone, or my hurry to help. It did not remember my mother's face when I told her, relief and gratitude mixing like rain in the gutter. It remembered only what I had written and what he had signed. $2,000, to be repaid in 3 months, interest modest as a thank you. Failure to repay would trigger a schedule we both initialed. Interest would step up. After 6 months, a notice would go to a collection service. It was not cruel. It was a map for getting home. The 3 months passed. His Friday moved its star. He paid me $200 once, folded in an envelope, a grin like a promise. Then nothing. I had sent reminders, gentle, then firm. He said he had me covered, kid, one good job away. The calendar did what calendars do. A year entered the room and sat down. I am not a fighter. I am a filer. I kept the emails. I printed the bounced check file stamp. I stored the certified mailing slips, pale tongues of proof. I stacked them like small bricks and told myself I was building a wall to lean on. At church, 2 Sundays after Thanksgiving, I sat behind my aunt, who sang from the hymnal and smoothed her husband's collar, Habit Not Love. After the service, my uncle laughed in the parking lot, the easy laugh of a man who never loses daylight to worry. He called me over. Sylvie. No hard feelings about the other night. None, I said. My voice was even. I had practiced even. You know I joke. That's how we keep it light. Light is important, I said. He had no idea that light can reveal. That when you bring a paper into sun, you can see every notch of the notary stamp. At work, a colleague asked why I was moving files with such care. I told her order is a kind of kindness. She nodded, not understanding, and offered me a clementine. People who have never been humiliated publicly think solutions arrive with trumpets. In truth, they come quiet. I checked my short list of pro bono lawyers, not to sue, but to check my map. I called one, an old friend from community clinics, and asked a narrow question. Her voice was calm. You have a valid agreement, Sylvie. Enforceable. If you want to go that far. But you don't have to swing the whole hammer to build a step. What step? I asked. Notice, then acknowledgement. People change when their denial stops working in public. The word public slipped under my skin. I thought of the dinner table, of the radiator hiss, of his wife's napkin like a curtain. Public did not have to be a courtroom. It could be a room with mashed potatoes, where a man enjoyed his spotlight. I could flip a switch without raising my voice. The idea frightened me, and then it steadied me. Fear and steadiness share a wall. That week I baked, because hands know before minds do. I tested crusts, counted breaths, chilled butter. I wrote his name on a small place card, then mine, and slid both into an envelope with the papers. Quiet things, not weapons, only truths wearing their Sunday clothes. I ironed a dress for Christmas dinner at my aunt's house, the big one, where the dining room could seat 15 and the chandelier looked like a tree of glass tears. I ironed slow, line by line, and promised myself a single sentence when the moment came. No more, no less. It snowed the morning of Christmas Eve, light as sifted sugar over the porches and parked cars. I walked to the bus with the folder in my bag, wrapped in a red ribbon because I have a sense of humor no one sees. My ally waited at the other end of the line, in a small office above a bakery that warmed the stairs with cinnamon. Her name is Kendra Morales. We shared a windowless room once, years ago, explaining forms to people who had lost their address under the rent. She reads documents like some people read faces, finding the part that matters and laying a finger on it. We hugged, then sat, our coats still open, the cold easing out of our sleeves. I'm not suing my uncle, I told her. Good, she said. Christmas cases are bad for the soul. I want accuracy. I want the room to know gravity exists. Kendra smiled. Then let's arrange the weight. We reviewed the agreement. She checked the dates, the certified slips, the 200 tucked like a dry leaf between months. She nodded, satisfied. This is tidy. He signed, he received funds, he defaulted. The interest stepped up. You notified him. You offered a schedule twice. He ignored both. I don't want to humiliate him, I said. I want him to stop humiliating me. That's different, she said. She took a yellow highlighter and lifted the key lines into sunlight. You're not dragging him. You're removing the rug he thinks you're standing on. Will this look like a trap? I asked. Traps hide. This is a door with a light over it. She slid a pale green note card across the desk. On it, she had written a sentence. If you're speaking aloud, say this and sit down. I read it. It fit in the mouth like a dry pill, necessary, not sweet. I placed the note card under the ribbon with the papers. Kendra folded a second copy of the loan, stamped with a notary's acknowledgement of the original. Take this too. If he performs denial theater, you can hand him his lines. She walked me out. We stood in the stairwell while the bakery's heat rose like a blessing. You're allowed to want the room to be true, she said. Women are told to keep the air soft. Sometimes we need it clear. On the bus, I watched couples carry small trees, their needles pressed tender against sweaters. I thought of being 9, my uncle lifting me to hang a paper star, his breath warm with cider. People are not one thing. They are a corridor. You can walk through their better rooms, even while the bad ones keep throwing parties. At home, I packed a pie, 2 scarves for my teenage cousins, and the folder. I stood at my mirror and practiced Kendra's sentence until my face learned it without changing shape. I slipped into my iron dress, the one that moved when I did, quiet as a page turning. Dinner began with carols and a crowd in the kitchen. My aunt's house shone. She had sprayed the windows with fake frost that caught the lights like netting. My uncle kissed cheeks, poured wine, told a story about the price of lumber, about how men these days carry phones like shields. He clapped my shoulder like I was a nephew he liked. We sat. The chandelier trembled with the furnace's exhale. The roast loosened its aroma into the air. He served plates with the gracious authority of a man in his element. I placed the folder next to my water glass and folded my hands. I waited for him to warm up, because he always did. He liked an audience seasoned, half full, grateful for laughter. The first joke landed on Mason, then floated toward me like a leaf across a pond, the kind of remark that looks harmless unless you are the pond. Some people, he said, write paragraphs to ask for what they want. I respect a man who takes a job instead. Some people. The room shifted. Eyes ticked toward me, then away. My aunt drew breath to change the subject. I reached for the ribbon. Kendra's sentence beat once in my chest, then settled. I stood only as much as a voice stands. I slid the folder toward him, the ribbon neat, the green note card tucked beneath. The moment held its breath. He looked at the gift, then at me, amused and wary, the way men look at puzzles they expect to solve without instructions. I nodded toward it, a hostess gesture, gentle. For you, I said. He untied the ribbon like a man opening a pocketknife, careful, sure. He drew out the papers, flipped past the note card, scanned the first page. His eyes stopped at the notary mark, then at his own signature, a snake hurrying off the line. The room bent closer without moving. My aunt set down her fork with the quiet of someone putting away a bell. "What is this?" he said, not a question. "Your loan agreement," I said. My voice stayed low. "From August 14th, 2 years ago. $2,000. Repayment in 3 months, then a schedule. You paid $200. Since then, nothing." He colored, a slow tide under the skin. "We handle family different," he said. "We do," I said. "I handled us with paper, because I wanted to keep us." I pointed to the highlighted clause. "You signed that. This is not a surprise. Why bring this out now, at dinner?" He gestured to the table, to the roast, to the silver. His voice tried to gather allies from the plates. "So I can thank you," I said. He blinked. "Thank me." "For the lesson," I said. "At Thanksgiving, you taught me where you place me when the room is listening. My turn is kinder. I'm placing us back in truth. I'm thanking you with acknowledgement." He made a short laugh that had no humor in it. "You want to shame me?" "No," I said. "I want to end the tradition where I sit quiet and swallow it. I brought you your own receipt. You taught the room to use words like weapons. I prefer paper." The cousins looked from face to face, the young uncertain, the older both sorry and relieved. My mother's hands were tight in her lap. Mason raised his chin slightly, a small nod that felt like a hand on the back. He flicked to the back page, found the totals. Kendra's yellow highlighted the current amount due, interest included, the line neat as a seam. He swallowed. "You'd send this to collections." "I don't have to," I said. "All I require is acknowledgement and a start. You choose whether you want to be the man who says yes to what he signed." "I was in a bad spot," he said. "You knew that." "I did," I said, "and I helped. You were the first person to teach me that help without terms can rot the person offering it. So I used terms, to keep both of us decent." He looked around, seeking cover under laughter that would not come. No one spoke. The chandelier trembled again, purely mechanical, no ghosts here. He flushed deeper. "You could have called me." "I did," I said. I tapped the clipped emails in the folder, gentle like a metronome. "You didn't answer." He held the note card as if it might cut him. He read Kendra's sentence aloud without knowing, his voice flat. "I acknowledge the debt and will begin repayment now, with a first payment of $500, due today, and a schedule agreed in writing by Sunday." He faltered. His eyes met mine. "Today." I lifted my phone and set it beside my plate. "Electronic works. Cashier's check works. If you need until morning for the bank, I accept that. If neither is possible, say that, and I'll make my decision." "What decision?" he said, though he knew. "Whether to keep this in the family," I said. "Or to let strangers do what we failed to do." He stared at the receipt, then at my mother, at his wife, at a son who had stopped chewing. He exhaled. Something in him slumped, like a tent unpinned. "Fine," he said, the word thin. "That's not the one," I said. "Try the other." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were older. "I acknowledge the debt," he said, this time from himself. "I'll pay $500 tonight. We'll write the schedule by Sunday." "Thank you," I said. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a wallet, then his phone, calculation and pride warring under his skin. He tapped, hesitated, tapped again. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. The transfer sat there like a new animal, wary but breathing. We returned to our plates. The roast had cooled. My aunt reached for the potatoes, hand steady. My uncle kept his head down, carved his portion too neatly, as if neatness could reverse time. No one applauded. No one scolded. It was not triumph. It was a floor that stopped tilting. He tried once more for a joke. "Guess I bought dessert," he said. "You're contributing," I said. "It suits you." We finished dinner with talk about weather. He chewed each answer before offering it. The quiet around us was not awkward, only new. When I stood to clear plates, he rose too, as if remembering a rule he once believed in. He carried the heavy platter to the sink without being asked. That was not victory. It was evidence. The room, at last, was true. Morning came with clean light, soft on the backsplash of my mother's kitchen. The house was still. The dishwasher hummed like a low hymn. I stood with a mug of coffee, hands wrapped around the heat, and watched a small finch worrying the last seeds from the feeder. Snow softened the porch steps. The world, briefly, had edges and kindness. My phone chimed at 8. A message from my uncle, just words, no decorations. 500 sent last night. Thank you for the chance to set this right. Let's meet Sunday. I stared at it longer than necessary, because simple things are rare. I set the phone down and rolled a dish towel, the way my grandmother used to when she needed to make her hands still. I walked to the living room. My mother had fallen asleep on the couch, the television purring soft reruns. I tucked the throw more snug under her chin. For years, she had stitched dignity out of leftovers. She woke as I turned. "How was last night?" she asked, voice rough with sleep. "Better than necessary," I said. Her eyes grew sharper. "Raymond." "He saw the paper," I said. "He saw himself." She sat up, slow, and reached for my hand. "Did you hurt him?" "I didn't add anything," I said. "I removed what wasn't true." She nodded, satisfied. "That'll do." On Sunday, we met at Kendra's office. He arrived early in a coat that made him look like a boy wearing his father's shape. He shook Kendra's hand, avoided mine, then met my eyes as if remembering a rule about grown men. We wrote the schedule. He signed without jokes. The snug office smelled like cinnamon again. He did not ask for a discount. I did not require a confession. We were not in that kind of church. Outside, we stood next to a snowbank already crusting at the edges. He cleared his throat. "I was wrong," he said. "About a lot." "I know," I said. The air ghosted between us. "I am not your enemy." He winced. "I know that now." He put his hand out. I took it, firm, brief. He walked to his truck with the careful stride of a man learning the weight of his own feet. At home, I opened the folder at my desk. I added the new schedule, stapled neatly, not as a threat, but as a record of two people choosing a line and walking it. I slid the folder back into the bottom drawer. My apartment was quiet except for the radiator knocking softly, a familiar, homely percussion. I breathed into the space that had opened inside me, the one where shame used to live rent-free. Peace does not announce itself. It moves in while you are washing spoons, while you are paring socks, while you are watering the plant that keeps leaning toward the morning. I touched the leaf of the pot hose and felt its cool wax against my thumb. Work waited, a stack of files, lives attached. I sat down and opened the next proposal. A community fridge project. Small, practical, beautiful. My aunt texted that night. "Thank you," she wrote. "He's been different today. Quieter. Maybe he hurt himself." She followed with a photo of the table, clear, the chandelier reflections like captured snow. My mother called a minute later, voice packed with pride and worry. "You didn't make a scene," she said. "No," I said. "I set a table." After New Year's, my uncle pressed his first payment into the schedule, then the second. He did not send flowers or apologies. He sent money on time. At Easter, he asked if he could bring chairs to my mother's house. He came early, set them up without comment, and stayed late, rinsing salad bowls as if the old promise still lived under his hands. I kept expecting triumph to ring, some bright bell. It never did. Relief is not a bell. It is a room without thunder. I was not larger. I was simply unbent. In the mirror, my face looked like mine, unadorned, a woman who had chosen paper when her voice trembled. Dignity is not loud, but it lights every corner when you let it stay. On a mild April morning, I took the bus downtown and stepped off one stop early. I walked the long way to work, past a little garden in front of the library where tulips stood like quiet candles. A child tottered along the edging stones, her mother's hand hovering firm and gentle. The city smelled like wet soil and coffee. Somewhere, a window opened and someone laughed, the warm kind that belongs to the day, not to performance. I thought about family, about how blood is a story we inherit but not a spell we must obey. We owe the truth more than we owe comfort. We owe each other chairs and receipts and the courage to lay both on the same table. The world does not end when you do that. Sometimes it begins. I reached my office door and held it for the security guard, who always pretended not to notice. He grinned. "Happy Monday, Miss Carrow." "Happy Monday," I said, and meant it. I sat at my desk and stacked the files again, small towers built of effort and grace. My hands were steady. The pot hose leaned toward the light like it always would, faithful to its simple decision. So was I. If this story touched you, share your thoughts below. And subscribe for more stories of quiet revenge.